Folks, my name is Jim Leach, and I would like to welcome you to the Tennessee Underground YouTube television channel. Today we're going to be looking at the premiere episode of our brand new series that we call The Cop Shop. We look at policing in a different angle, a different view, a different side of police work that you're probably not going to see anywhere else but a cop shop. We look at the police from a human angle, the human side of policing. It's very important. We don't see it very often. Before we get started, let me show you something here. Some information about us. If you would like to directly get a hold of me, you can go, if you can read my writing. My writing is a good excuse to have a laptop. Don't you agree? Up on the top it says jleach, TSG, @gmail.com. That is my email address. The TSG is a training company we had in for 25 years, training services group, training police officers. Beneath that, you'll see tugnews.com. That's TUG, stands for Tennessee Underground. Tug News, the E's kind of gone on me there. Tugnews.com. That's our website, myself and Steve Bowers. We are Tennessee Underground. We're the principals. And you can go to tugnews.com, and I think we've got probably close to 300 podcasts, most of them law enforcement, some of them Congress people, political people, Pentagon correspondents, some really interesting stuff. And if you would please, before you leave us today, if you don't mind, if you like our program, please show us that you like it, share it with your friends, and subscribe to it. These things will help us to continue bringing you this programming. I will show you this sign again before we leave in just a few minutes. All right, there you have it. Let's do it. In the 1970s and 80s, I was privileged to serve as a special agent criminal investigator with the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. I was assigned to Western Tennessee. In Tennessee, we're in 3 grand divisions, East, Middle, and West. I was assigned primarily to work in the Western Division, but I worked all over the state. In, I think it was 1981, we had a request to work a cold case homicide here in West Tennessee, and the case was assigned to me. And my boss, Jack Blackwell, assigned 3 other agents to work with me on the case initially, Mr. Floyd Mangrum, Mr. John Carpenter, and Mr. Lucian English. We were all very close friends. There were only 8 of us to work 21 counties in West Tennessee, so we were together a lot, working together a lot. We all got along very well. We started off on a Monday morning, and we met in our Jackson office, which is sort of in the middle of West Tennessee, if you're not familiar with our country, our part of the country, excuse me. And we left there to go interview our 2 witnesses. We left the office probably about 8:30 or 9, I guess. We were traveling to Henderson, Tennessee, to Chester County. The sheriff down there, Eric Bell, who was a great sheriff and a great friend, by the way, of mine, and he had offered to give us whatever we needed to work on the case. The victim was from there, from that county. It's not where the murder occurred, that's where the victim was from. So we left the Jackson office, headed to Henderson, Tennessee, which is about, 20, 30-minute drive, not far. Floyd and I went in my car, and John and Lucian went in one of their cars. Well, Floyd and I got to Henderson, and we weren't there but just a few minutes, and we were going to interview 2 ladies who were the last 2 people that we knew of to see the victim alive. So they got there, and we offered some coffee, I'm sure, if they wanted some, and we just sat and chit-chatted for a while, because, if you got more than 1 witness, you want to separate them and interview them separately. Not that they're going to do anything wrong, but we don't want what one's saying to influence what the other's saying, influence their recollection. We want everybody's independent recollection if we're going to be effective. So we didn't want to talk about the case until John and Lucian got there. So we made small talk, and, really, after a while, if you don't know the people, you sort of run out of things to talk about. And we get on to, 30 minutes or so, and John and Lucian still not there. Remember this is in about 1981, I think. We didn't have cell phones, didn't have pagers. If they had had a wreck, we were sitting at the sheriff's office, the dispatchers would have heard it over the radio, and they'd let us know. So we knew it wasn't that. Didn't know what the holdup was. But we're just kind of sitting there cooling our heels, waiting for them to get there. And I looked at the lady that Lucian and John were going to be interviewing, and I said, "Ma'am," I said, "I need to tell you something. One of the guys that's going to be talking to you, he's a really fine man, and he's an excellent investigator, but he can't hear thunder." And she said, "Well, bless his heart." And I said, "Oh yeah, it's tragic. It's really bad." I said, he's very self-conscious, as you might understand. What you have to do if he asks you a question, you've got to just almost yell at him. You got to speak very, very loud. And it helps if you get up close to him so he can, sort of read your lips if possible. She said, "Well, that's so bad. Bless his heart." I said, "Yeah, it's tragic, ain't it?" Now, if you're not from the southeastern United States, you may not understand. But when a lady from our part of the country says, "Well, bless his heart," what that really means is, it sounds like he hadn't got sense enough to get in out of the rain. How did I get hooked up with this deal? That's what she was thinking, you see. Finally, Lucian and John showed up, and I said, "Could I speak to you just a moment?" Before we get started, introduced them to the ladies, and Lucian and I go in another room. I said, "Where have y'all been, old boy?" He said, "Well, did you see that 75 Buick that was sitting on the side of the road in this man's yard on the way down here for sale?" I said, "No, Lucian, I didn't see the car for sale." He said, "Well, I kind of been looking for one like that." And he said, "Well, we stopped and had to talk to him a while, see what he's wanting for it, see if the car's in good shape." I said, "Oh, so we're down here. Okay, all right, that's fine. I get it. No problem. Let's go." So we went back. We started interviewing these two ladies, and they had us in side-by-side rooms. And back then, I guess it's pretty much still the same way. A lot, maybe not quite as much, but back then, just about every jail that I ever went in, they had built out of concrete block walls. So, and they're very secure, and they're low maintenance, good buildings, but they're not real soundproof. You can hear through them. Well, Lucian and John are in the room next door to Floyd and I, and it was literally so loud in the next room with that woman answering Lucian's questions at the top of her voice that we could hardly carry on our interview in the next room. Plus the fact that I was just about to bust out laughing at him. And it wasn't just a few minutes till there was a knock on the door. And I go to the door, and it's Lucian. And the top of his head, he was bald-headed on top, and the top of his head was just fire engine red. And he motioned with his finger for me to step outside, We stepped outside. I said, "What's wrong with you?" He said, "Leach, I am fixing to slap this woman plumb out of her chair." I said, "What is wrong with you, English?" He said, "Every time I ask her a question, she gets right up in my face and starts yelling at me." He said, "I have backed up to the wall, and every time I move back, she moves a step closer. I can't back up any further. Now, I've had it. I ain't getting paid enough to put up with stuff like this." And I said, "Now, what you need to do is be a little bit more professional, English. Get back in there. We got to have this interview done, man. Please go back in there and talk to that woman and try to control your temper." He said, "Well, I'll try, but I'll tell you, I don't like it. I don't like it at all." And there might have been a little profanity thrown in somewhere in the middle there. Now, of course, I hope you understand there was absolutely nothing wrong with Lucian English's hearing. He could hear just fine. So we finally get through with the interviews and we leave. With nothing else is said about the thing. About 2 weeks later, I guess, we were all kind of sitting around talking about leads, trying to figure out what we were going to do. And Floyd Mangum, the guy that had been my partner that day, said, "Hey, did you ever tell Lucian, did you ever tell him about telling that woman that he was deaf?" I said, I don't think I remembered to mention that to Lucian. I could feel him staring a hole in me. He said, "Deaf. You told her I was deaf?" I said, "Well, I may have said something about you had a little trouble hearing." And Floyd pipes up then and said, "No, you told her he was deaf, Leach. You told her to get up in his face and yell at him." Well, I was caught, right? So I didn't say it. Lucian didn't say anything else. He just stared at me. But what I was reading in his mind, I knew what was going through his mind. He was thinking, payback is going to be rough, Leach, when I get you back. And I don't remember what he did, but I'm sure that it was. Just a little lighthearted stuff in the middle of a serious situation. You have to do that sometimes to kind of take the edge off because you're dealing with some very, very hard things. It ended up about 3 years later, we caught the guy committed that murder, and he died on death row in Tennessee. And we'll talk probably some more about that in some of our later shows. One more time, let me show you our contact information here. If you can get a hold of me directly, if I can figure out how to do this sign. Everything's backwards on this thing, you understand? Email address is jleach, JLEACHTSG @gmail.com. Our website is tugnews, TUGNEWS.com. And please, this is very important to us. If you will, if you like our program, share it with your friends and subscribe so you can see when we put new information on here. And there's going to be a lot of new information coming. Folks, we appreciate you taking time in your busy schedule to see us and spend time with us. Once again, my name is Jim Leach, and I would ask you to please always be aware of your surroundings and be safe, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.